Hello, this is Lisa Sharon. I'm the Financial Aid Director here at Wilson Community College. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time today to share with you some information about financial aid. The first step in applying for financial aid is to complete a FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid, to be considered for federal grants, state grants, and work study and loans. Students may complete the FAFSA in one of two ways: electronically at www.fafsa.gov or manually filling out a paper application. Online applications generally take 3 to 5 business days to process. Students may apply for a PIN in order to sign the document electronically. A new application must be completed every school year. So a good rule of thumb is to complete this application when you do your tax returns. Paper applications usually take 4 to 6 weeks to process. This application must be signed by a student, and if you're dependent, by your parent. A new application, here again, must be filed every school year. And remember, when you do your tax returns, that is a good rule of thumb to do a financial aid application. Information needed. If you're dependent, you need both your federal tax return and your parents'. If you're independent, you only need your federal tax return, and if you're married, your spouse's. Untaxed income amounts such as child support received and veterans' non-educational benefits are also reported on the FAFSA. Please contact your financial aid office if you or your family have questions or have experienced any problems filling out your application. You may be wondering if you're a dependent versus independent. Dependents are students who answer no to all the questions in Step 3. Questions 45 through 57. You will need to put parental information on your FAFSA if you don't answer yes to any of these questions. Independent students are students who answer yes to at least one question in Step 3. No parental information is needed on the FAFSA if you're an independent student. There are several types of financial aid. There are federal grants, state grants, federal work study, direct subsidized loan, unsubsidized loan, emergency loans, half tuition and bookstore loans, scholarships, and child care assistance. Grants are funded by the federal and state government agencies, created specifically to help offset the cost of education. Federal and state grants generally do not have to be repaid. However, if you do not complete your coursework, you may be liable for all or part of your award. What are the requirements for grants, and are you eligible? For students to be eligible for federal and state aid, they must meet the following criteria. You have to be enrolled in an eligible major. Lifetime eligibility use must be less than 600% and maintain satisfactory progress, which includes passing the 67% GPA and 150 requirement. There are application flags that could prevent you from receiving financial aid, or it may require you to turn in documentation to resolve your financial aid. Citizenship flag, default flag, overpayments, drug convictions, and verification all are flags that could require additional documentation to determine your eligibility. The citizenship flag requires students to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. Eligible non-citizens must provide their 8 or 9-digit alien registration number on their FAFSA. Overpayments and defaults. You may incur an overpayment if you do not complete the term while receiving federal aid. Defaults occur when you do not repay your federal loan payments on time. Overpayments and defaults must be resolved before receiving aid. Drug convictions. These are convictions for the possession or sale of illegal drugs for an offense that occurred while receiving federal aid. This may affect eligibility for financial aid. And verification flags. If you're flagged for verification, it doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. It just means you need to turn in some information, usually an official tax transcript from the IRS, or you can utilize the IRS data retrieval on the FAFSA and a verification worksheet. These will be mailed to you upon the financial aid office receiving the flag. Results may take a few days. Please allow us time to check your file and get the official results back from the processors. We, of course, will notify you upon the receipt of your eligibility. The method of notification is email for award notifications, and we post award letters on WebAdvisor and mail LAC letters. We encourage all students to keep a check on their email account on a regular basis so you don't miss any notifications that we send out. Email is often used to communicate changes in eligibility, and as mentioned in the previous slide, we do send out award letter notifications via email. Eligible majors. Federal and state aid may be applied towards the cost of a degree program and most of the diploma programs. BLET is the only certificate program approved for the Title IV aid and state aid. Federal and state aid will not cover any continuing education classes. Let's look at an example of the lifetime eligibility used. Effective fall 2012, students cannot receive more than the equivalent of 6 full-time annual Pell Awards. The Department of Education will track receipt from the inception of Pell. Also, this affects the state grant eligibility. For example, John receives 100% of Pell in 2001-02, 2002-03, 2003 and 4, and 4 and 5, 5 and 6, and 6 and 7. So based on John's example, he's received his maximum amount of Pell Grant. So he would not be eligible for any more Pell Grants or state grants. Testing 1, 2, 3. Satisfactory academic progress. SAP is measured in 3 areas: passing rate, which is 67%, GPA, which is 2.0, and maximum type rate, which is 150%. Students are required to meet all 3 SAP components. Upon failing it the first time, they are placed on warning, and they remain eligible for financial aid. However, if they fail it a second time consecutively, they will go on suspension and not be eligible for federal or state aid, with the exception of maximum time frame. The first time you fail that, you will automatically be placed on suspension, so there's no warning period for that particular flag. The 67% regulation requires all students to pass 67% of their cumulative attempted hours. The first failure would place individuals on financial aid warning, and they continue to be eligible for financial aid. However, the second consecutive failure, the student would be placed on financial aid suspension and lose eligibility for aid. Future aid would depend on the student meeting the 67% requirement. Okay, for example, Shaggy starts college in fall of 2009. He registers for 12 credits and he passes none of them. His passing rate would be 0% because 0 divided by 12 is 0. So Shaggy's going to be placed on financial aid warning at the end of that term. And in fall of 2010, he comes back and he registers for 12 credits. He passes 12. but his passing rate is only 50%, which is the 12 divided by 24. Now, he would go on financial aid suspension at the end of that term and would cease to be eligible for future federal or state aid until he obtains that cumulative 67% passing rate. Now, another example would be Scooby-Doo. He starts college in fall of 2009. Scooby starts off and he registers for 12 credits. He passes 6 of them. So he starts off with a passing rate of 50%, which is the 6 credits which he passes divided by what he attempted, which is 12. His end of term, he would be placed on financial aid warning and continue to be eligible for financial aid for the upcoming semester or when he comes back. Now, Scooby comes back in fall of 2010, and he registers for 7 credits, and he passes all 7. His passing rate raises to 68%. And we get that by taking 13 hours, which he passed between the 2 semesters, and the 19 that he attempted between the 2 semesters. And since he is at the 67 or above rate, he is now taken off a financial aid warning. Scooby never lost financial aid or state grant eligibility. The financial aid requires students to maintain a cumulative average of a 2.0. We have to include remedial credits. And the admissions office does not include remedial credits, so you're likely to see a slight difference in your GPA with us as opposed to the admissions office. But we have to go with the financial aid GPA because it does include those remedial credits. The first failure of not maintaining that 2.0, you'll be placed on financial aid GPA warning, and you will continue to be eligible for aid. But the second consecutive failure, you will be placed on suspension and lose eligibility for aid. Students cannot receive federal or state aid if they reach 150% of the required number of hours for their major. All hours count, even if your major changes. All attempted count except for remedial classes. Federal grants are broken down into 2 areas: the Federal Pell Grant and the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Funds are awarded based on the FAFSA results. Currently, the Pell Max is $5,730 for a school year. And SEOG varies each year, and the year currently runs from fall, spring, and summer. And if you are awarded full-time awards, it will only cover 2 semesters out of the school year. So if you start in fall and you're full-time and you're going to come spring also and be full-time, you might want to put some of that money aside to help you cover summer if you plan to attend then. With state grants, there are 2 different types of state grants: the North Carolina Community College Grant and the North Carolina Education Lottery Scholarship. Both grants require students to be North Carolina residents, and they have to be at least half-time enrolled, and they must maintain satisfactory academic progress. Work study is another type of financial aid, which is need-based and is based on the FAFSA results. Students can typically work 10 hours per week, but cannot exceed 26 hours per week. The hourly rate is $7.25. Work-study students must meet all satisfactory academic progress requirements and authorize a background check before beginning work at Wilson Community College. The direct subsidized loan is a need-based loan. Funds are to be paid back. The government pays interest while students are enrolled at least half-time. Payments can be deferred until 6 months after the student ceases half-time enrollment, and funds are to be used for educational expenses only. Visit our website for more information as well as the application process at wilsoncc.edu under the direct loan process. The direct unsubsidized loan is a loan program that is not need-based. Funds are to be paid back and the government does not pay interest on the loan while the student is enrolled. Visit our website for more information on this loan as well at wilsoncc.edu. The emergency loan is another type of loan. However, this is a short-term loan. Students may borrow up to $250 for a maximum of 30 days with no interest. Documentation of the emergency must be provided to the Assistant Director of Financial Aid before receiving the loan. A $5 processing fee will be due within 30 days. Loans are based on the availability of funds, and you do not apply for the FAFSA. Have tuition loans and bookstore loans. Well, the first one, have tuition loans, allows students to pay half of their tuition and the full amount of fees the day they register. The remaining half is due in approximately 60 days. There is a $5 processing fee for the loan, and it is based upon the availability of funds. You do not have to complete a FAFSA for this loan. The bookstore loan allows students to borrow up to $250 at our Wilson Community College bookstore. Students must provide documentation from the bookstore of the total cost of all items needed. There is also a $5 processing fee for this loan. Loans are based on the availability of funds, and again, you do not have to do a FAFSA to be considered for this loan. Scholarships. Wilson Community College offers a variety of scholarships. You can find our scholarship application on our website during early registration for fall semester at wilsoncc.edu. Additional scholarship information can be found at cfnc.org. You can also research outside scholarships at your leisure. However, we do wave a flag of caution if a scholarship asks you to pay money. Our college also offers child care assistance. Students must complete a different application for the child care program in addition to the FAFSA. You can find this application online during fall registration or in the financial aid office at later times. Please contact Lee Rhodes or Lee Page at 246-1344 if you have any questions. Just an overview of the financial aid requirements. Remember, federal and state aid requires students to uphold satisfactory academic progress, which is maintaining a cumulative 2.0 GPA, maintaining a 67% passing rate, cumulative average that is. You can't exceed 150% of your required hours. And also, students are limited to 30 hours of remedial work that can count towards financial aid. And also, there are 12 full-time semester awards, which equal the lifetime eligibility limit for the grants. And here's just a few tips as you apply for financial aid. Read the instructions carefully. Never lie on your FAFSA, and never assume. Talk with someone in your financial aid office. Keep copies of the required documents, and always provide correct documents as requested by the office. Follow up once you've completed your FAFSA, and apply by the deadline. See your financial aid office for more information. Please contact the VA representative, which is me, Lisa Sharon, in the financial aid office, if you think you might be eligible for veteran educational assistance. There are a number of outside agencies which may help you offset the cost of education, one of which is the WIA program. Also, Wilson OIC, Workforce Development, which helps dislocated workers who can draw unemployment, and individuals who are economically disadvantaged or individuals with disabilities. Telemon helps individuals who are migrant or seasonal farm workers. At least 50% of the past 2 years' earned income has to come from farm work. Also, the Department of Social Services has child care assistance, which the funds are extremely limited, and vocational rehab here in Wilson may be able to help when they actually help individuals who are working age, has a disability, or has the possibility of returning to work and must complete an evaluation to receive assistance through them. Here are some websites that might be of interest to you. The North Carolina College Foundation. The other is college.gov, which helps you plan for college. So if you know someone who hasn't started college who wants to come, please give them this website. In addition, federalstudentaid.ed.gov gives you scholarship and grant information. And Know How to Go is a website that gives you the steps to college. College Board helps you with standardized tests, and BLS.gov is a website to explore career options. IRS.gov gives you the avenue to request tax returns, and VA.gov gives you information on veteran affairs. And of course, last but certainly not least, is wilsoncc.edu. Gives information about our college and also financial aid information. As always, if you have any questions about financial aid, please don't hesitate to contact any one of our staff. Again, my name is Lisa Sharon. I'm the Director of Financial Aid and VA Representative. There's Candace Brewer, who is the Assistant Director of Financial Aid and Loan Officer. Shannon Wiseman is our Financial Aid Specialist, and Lee Page is our Financial Aid Assistant, Work Study, and Child Care Coordinator. Please feel free to call us or email us if you have any questions. Here's a SAP test. Thelma enrolls at Wilson CC, and she enrolls in cartoon design. This program requires 60 hours. Her first term, she registers for 10 credits and passes 7. She gets a 2.0 GPA, and she did not earn any remedial classes, or she did not take any. Does Thelma pass all 3 SAP requirements? Remember, SAP is 67, GPA, and 150. Well, let's look at the answer. 67%. Cumulatively, she took 10 credits. Well, 67% of 10 is 6.7 hours. She passed 7 hours, so she meets this requirement. GPA, she earned a 2.0 cumulative average. And we require 2.0 cumulative average, so she meets this requirement as well. And the last part of the SAP is 150%. Since cartoon design requires 60 hours, we will multiply 150% times 60 hours to come up with the maximum hours that she could possibly attempt. That is 90 hours. She's only attempted 10, so she's well within the required maximum, so she passes 150%. As we look at all 3 components of the SAP, Thelma passes each individual one. So, in the future semesters, she's going to be just fine for financial aid.